This is the complete step-by-step guide to setting up your business in Claude Cowork. The reason most business owners aren't getting the most out of Claude is that they're still using it like they used to use ChatGPT. The business owners that are getting ahead with AI are all running a Claude operating system. When you set this up, Claude has access to your apps and data, automates your work, and continuously self-improves. This is the next level beyond a basic LLM chatbot. So in this video, we're going to walk through how to build your Claude operating system. We'll build your business context files, connect it to all of your data sources, then my favorite part, which is setting up a self-improvement loop so it gets better every day without you needing to do anything. And once you set this up, I promise you're not going to want to go back to your old AI setup. By the way, I'm Thaddeus. I'm a former senior data scientist and the co-founder of Elevate. We build AI systems for service businesses, and then I break them down here so you can apply them to your own work without any technical background needed. And the setup I'm going to show you today is the exact one that we've also built for business owners. So let's get into it. Setting up AI for your business is just like onboarding a new employee that happens to be also a genius, except it's their first day on the job. That means it's super intelligent, knows a ton about almost every subject, but it just doesn't know anything about your specific business. Now, most people realize this and overcompensate. They try to give Claude every single thing about their business at once so it's not missing anything. If you give Claude everything at once, it'll get overwhelmed, it won't know what to focus on, and then your results are going to start to be hit or miss. We need to organize our business so that Claude can efficiently grab the information it needs. The solution is what Anthropic calls progressive disclosure. And a fun fact, this principle was actually developed for humans first in product design. The idea is to design workflows where information is revealed at the time that it's relevant to the task. So the Claude operating system we're setting up today is built on this principle, and it works in 3 layers. Layer 1 is your business context. This is what Claude knows about you. Layer 2 is your data sources. These are the apps and the data it can access. And layer 3 is your AI workflows. And finally, this is where Claude can automate your work. By the end of this video, you'll have 2 workflows that'll make you more productive, and I'll show you how to set up a self-improving loop so Claude gets smarter every week. And before we dive into layer 1, let's get this Claude OS onto your computer. So I built a complete Claude OS template with every folder and file ready to go that we're going to review. Just drop your business information into it, and that'll be the fastest way to get started. All right, once you hit the link in the description, you're going to go ahead and it's going to send you to the AI Workflows Academy. And then you're going to hit the Claude for Business module. You're going to scroll down to the Claude Cowork OS. And then in this template, I'm going to go in here. Then you're going to click into the Notion template. It's going to take you to this landing page. And you should see a zip file. That's going to be the Claude OS template. And the reason for this is that we're always making improvements. So you're always going to see the latest and most up-to-date OS because AI is changing rapidly. So you're going to go ahead and download that. Then you can move that to wherever you want to keep it on your computer. Then once you're in Claude, you're going to go ahead and go to Cowork. That's the middle tab here. You're going to go ahead and go to Projects, and then you're going to create a new project. You're going to use the existing folder. Select the folder, and then you're going to go ahead and find wherever you unzipped the file. Okay, make sure you double click on the file and unzip it however you need to. Then you're going to go ahead and open that folder within Claude Cowork. You don't need to write any in the instructions here because this folder actually has a Claude instructions file already built into it, and we're going to go ahead and edit it throughout the video, so you don't need to worry about that. I'm just going to rename it here to Cedar OS. So this is going to be the overall OS for everything across the business. All right, and there you have it. Now you're all set up with the OS in Claude. And what I would do is pin this project so that now you're probably going to be coming here a lot. You'll be able to go on this sidebar here and always find it pinned there. So it's much easier to find because trust me, you're going to be using this a ton. And when you go to the context area here, you can go ahead and expand that top level folder and you'll see everything else within it. And if you click this icon here, it'll open up the actual Finder view and you can navigate the files, or you can actually expand any of these subfolders here too and be able to take a look at any of the files right in here. All right, so now you're set up and you have all the context here. And of course, you're going to want to change all the file names to be specific to your business, but this is just the template to get you started. And to edit everything, we're just going to be asking Claude to make all the changes for us. So don't worry. The best place to start when setting up your Claude operating system is layer 1, your business context. Think of this as everything Claude needs to know about you, your business, and your customers. And there are really 2 pieces here. First is your instructions. This is the stuff you tell Claude up front. And we're going to have 2 files. There's a Claude.md file, and then there's a collection of files in your About folder. All right, the most important file in your entire Claude OS is going to be the Claude.md file. This is the employee handbook that you would hand a new hire on their first day. And it does 2 jobs. It gives them a a high-level overview of the business, things like your strategy, products, services, customers, and it points to where everything lives so that if they need to go deeper on any topic, they know where to find that information. The Claude MD file is the first thing Claude reads in every session. So whatever you put here is going to shape the rest of your conversation with Claude. And when you get this right, you're going to notice that Claude will start to sound like somebody who actually works at your company. All right, if the Claude MD file is the handbook, your About folder is the actual playbook. So this is where Claude is going to look when it needs to go deeper on any specific topic in your business. When you open up the About folder in your Claude OS, you're going to see 4 template files already in there, and these are going to be doing most of the work. The company overview is who you are, what you actually do. The brand voice is how you talk. Things like your favorite phrases, the tone, also the words that you want to make sure AI doesn't say. The current state file captures what's true about your business this week, things like your active projects and what you're focused on right now. And finally, we have principles. This captures the standards that Claude follows across all of your work. So things like your decision-making style, your quality bar, even how you want it to write or respond to you. For example, one of mine is to be skeptical and not be a yes man. So when I float a bad idea, I want Claude to push back instead of just agreeing with things that I say, especially when I'm brainstorming things about the business. Later in this video, we'll cover how to handle rules that only apply to specific parts of your business. But for now, these are going to be principles that apply across all of your work. And of these 4 files, the current state one is probably the most overlooked one. But make sure you don't skip this one because what makes Claude helpful is not just knowing about your business, but knowing currently what's top of mind for you right now so it can be way more useful. And let me show you what this looks like in practice. All right, let's talk about the most important folder within your operating system. So that's going to be the Claude MD file. You can think of this as the main instructions file that's going to be loaded every time you start a new session or task within Claude. It starts with a high-level overview. So for Cedar Consulting, it's a 2-person consulting firm. They help service businesses do more with less. This is what they do. It'll talk about their offer. It has a little bit about their ideal customer. And then this is going to be really the bulk of it, which is where everything else lives across this entire operating system. So for example, you don't need to load all of your brand voice, your operating principles, and the current state of the business all the time, but Claude always loads this file. So when it detects that you're asking something that requires more detail about any of these areas, it'll tap into the About folder and know where to find those files. And if we take a look at that, I can go back and then expand the About folder here, and you'll just see they have brand voice, company overview, the current state. So let's just look at brand voice, for example. So let's say you're writing any marketing or sales copy or you're creating content, it's going to tap into this brand voice file. So it has how we talk, the phrases we use, the phrases we never use, which is probably just as important, the tone, and then specific preferences when you're writing to clients. For our team, I think we have around 8 different files in the About folder, but I find that it just organically grows as you find the need for more files. If you skip this layer, every conversation with Claude is just going to keep resetting. You waste time retyping content, or you get outputs that could just be generic and apply to any company in your industry. If I prompt Claude with no business context and ask it to draft a discovery follow-up, I get a generic reply. But now if I run the same prompt with my About folder loaded, the reply comes back in my voice talking about my specific offer with my real pricing guide. The difference is the context layer. So just take the time to build this out once the right way, and then every conversation you have moving forward will have your business context built right into it. Here's the fastest way to set up your business context files in Claude without writing a single line yourself. Open my Claude OS template as a folder in Claude Cowork, walk it through your business out loud for 10 minutes, and you can easily do this by just activating the voice mode and then just say, I'm going to teach you everything about my business in the next 10 minutes. I want you to draft all the context files for the About folder and my Claude MD file. Then just run it back and edit anything that it got wrong, and in a few minutes you could be done with the entire business context layer of your Claude operating system. Alright, so that covers instructions, and the second piece to this is memory. And this is actually something most people miss, but Claude actually has 2 kinds of memory. The first kind is auto memories. Every session, Claude is picking up on how you work and saves what it notices. Things like your preferences, patterns, and how you like things done. So if you tell Claude once to always check a contract before creating the invoice, Claude will save that preference, and then it'll remember it the next time you do that without you needing to mention it at all. And the second kind is recorded memory. And this is the part of the Claude OS that I don't hear anyone online really talking about, but it's really powerful. Recorded memory lives in 2 folders inside your Claude OS template. These are your decisions and your changelog. These are the things that you're intentionally recording along with Claude. The decisions folder is where every log choice gets written down, so you don't second guess the same thing twice, and the lessons that you're learning compound over time. And the changelog folder is exactly what it sounds like. You can think of it like a more curated history of the different sessions that have happened. So both of these actually start out empty, but then as you go and have more working sessions, they start to get filled out and become really useful. Auto memory is just being built itself in the background without your input, but recorded memory is what you choose to save, and that's that's what makes it the most valuable. Now you have the foundational business context layer of your Claude OS. Your instructions are mostly a one-time build, and they get every output from Claude tailored exactly to your business, and your memory grows every time you work and helps Claude get a little more sharper every day that you work with it. Your AI still needs access to your apps and data to actually get work done, so that's what we're going to tackle next. If you're copying and pasting between Claude and your other apps, you're becoming the bottleneck in your own business. The middle layer of this Claude OS solves this problem by giving Claude direct access to your apps, files, and your databases. So if we think about setting up an AI, just like onboarding a new employee for your business, we can give them a ton of context so they understand how your business works, but they're going to need access to your tech and systems so they can actually get work done. So let's go over the 3 ways to provide your Claude OS with data, and I'll show you a real example for each. Let's start with tools. So there are 2 ways to give Claude access to your apps and tools. We have connectors and MCP. Connectors are built-in plugs that Claude already has for apps you probably use every day. Things like Gmail, your calendar, Notion, Google Drive. You basically just turn these on once in your settings, log in, and then now you're connected. Now Claude's able to read your inbox, check your calendar, even analyze data in your Notion pages without you needing to copy and paste the information back and forth. The first place you're going to want to look is going to be connectors. Then if the connector doesn't exist for an app that you want to connect, that's when you look into MCP, which stands for Model Context Protocol. And it's actually very simple. So a recent example that I can share for myself is that I use an AI tool called Rise to automatically track how I'm using my time on my computer. I wanted to pull that information to Claude, but they didn't have a connector. So I just looked up Rise MCP. They had some official documentation. I checked that URL, and then I added it as a custom MCP connection in Claude, logged in, and I was connected in just a few minutes. By the way, if you're interested to have an AI tool just passively monitoring your time and categorizing your tasks, I'll put the link to Rise in the description, and it is an affiliate link if you want to try it out. So with tools now set up, Claude can now pull from your apps in real time, and that's going to give you a ton of hours back every week. All right, when you're connecting apps, first you're going to want to check connectors. So if you go to the sidebar here and go to Customize, you're going to hit Connectors, and there's a few ways to connect them. So the first way is to just browse connectors here, and then Anthropic has their official companies that they partner with and have official integrations. So you can go ahead and just look through here, go ahead and hit a filter, or just search for whatever you're looking for. So maybe if you're in e-commerce, you might need to connect your Shopify. So they'll take you through a quick login portal. So you could for sure connect Gmail, Google Calendar, whatever you need to start out. And then the other way, if you don't see, for example, I use a time tracking tool. It's a AI time tracking tool called Rise. They actually don't have a native integration here. So what I would do in this case is go to just Google. A lot of companies are releasing their MCPs as fast as they can because they don't want to be left behind in this whole being integrated with the AI thing. So what you could do is just search Rise MCP setup. And you'll be able to see, and usually I like to see if the official company has put out documentation. So I know the company is Rise and it says Rise MCP. I can take a look, and feel free to just look up any app that you use that you don't see a connector within Claude. Look up the MCP setup guide and look for that company's official documentation. So you can see here they have an official setup guide. I've already followed it, so I have mine set up, but they make it really simple. And essentially, they're going to give you an MCP URL. So all you're going to do is take this URL here. You're going to head back to Claude, and then once you get to connectors, you're going to add a custom connector. You're going to put that URL here, and then you could just put Rise MCP. And then once you click add, it'll take you through a sign-on portal. All you do is sign into your account like you normally would that app, and then you should be connected and good to go. And then the other thing I should mention is once you're in there, for example, let's just talk about Rise. You can go ahead and click on the connector. Then you can review all the permissions that you're actually giving Claude to be able to do with that app. So maybe for more sensitive apps like Shopify, if you have all of your products up there, you may not want Claude to accidentally make changes to your prices, or maybe you do, I don't know. But the point is that you could go here and specify if you wanted to ask for your approval before an action, if you want to block certain actions so it doesn't even try to take that action, or if something is really reliable, for example, reading my time allocation, that's something I just want Claude to always be able to do without asking me. So I've given it that permission. And let's go ahead and test it out. Give me a visual breakdown of how I spent my time across the last 7 days and break it down by tasks and sort it from high to low. All right, and there we go. You can see it's getting the time allocation using the Rise tool. And notice how I didn't have to mention the Rise app at all. And to me, that's one of my favorite parts about using connectors is that Claude will just detect when it would need that information in that app, and then it'll just tap into the tools. Great. And there you have it. It has 94 time entries over the last 7 days. And just like that, because I've already set up all the data and tracking in my Rise app, now I can just immediately pull that data, analyze it, create visualizations, incorporate it in my workflows however I want. This is actually fascinating. I might have to create an automated report to get this sent to my email or something. In summary, check out the Claude native connectors, and then if that doesn't work, just search up your tool for the MCP setup guides. After setting up Claude for multiple businesses, I keep hearing the same question. How do you organize all the information in your company? Are we creating one big AI brain? Does everyone get a little AI brain? How does this all connect? And the best way to solve this problem is to just approach each function of your business like its own workspace. Think about how you'd onboard a new hire. After you give them general company context, you'd walk them through what they're going to be doing for their specific role. Let's say, for example, they're going to be in charge of running your company newsletter. You'd show them where the newsletter is at this week. You'd show them things like what you've tried, what works, what doesn't, and then you'd also give them any templates that you use to write the newsletter and any other resources or assets like trackers that you have for KPIs. And they're each going to be made up of the same 5 file. Let's walk through them and use the newsletter workspace as our example. In your Claude MD file, you're going to give it general instructions of how it should approach your newsletter work. The current state would be what's true right now, what's the priority right now for the newsletter. Then your changelog is just going to be a record of all the previous work sessions you've had where you've worked on the newsletter. Your decisions are going to be all the decisions that you made specifically for the newsletter project over time. Your resources are going to have any specific templates or SOPs or brand assets. And by the way, don't worry about maintaining any of this manually. So Claude updates these files automatically as you work through a self-improvement loop that I'm going to show you later in the video. I'm going over the files though because I think it's important to know how this thing actually works, and you can also audit and edit these files as needed because they're just text files. Let's just say we're starting with 3 workspaces. We have clients, marketing, and then operations, where we do all of our admin and finance work. And so for this company, there's only 3 workspaces for today, but you can easily just add more as you go. Let's say you want to start making short form Instagram videos. You can just tell your Claude OS that you want to open up a new workspace because you want to start making short form Instagram videos. And in just a minute or two, it'll be able to create the entire workspace for you with the correct template files. And here's one more setup move. So in Cowork, you're going to set up one project per workspace folder. Plus, you're also going to want one for the entire Claude OS. You're going to use your company OS level project for things that cut across all your workspaces. Things like your Friday review, your planning, anything where Claude just needs to know context across the entire business. Then use the project for a specific workspace when you need to just do focused work on one function of your business. And the reason for the split, by the way, is that focused projects mean faster, sharper answers. And when you use the overall OS folder, Claude is going to take longer to respond and use way more tokens, but it will have context across your entire business, which is helpful for some tasks. And really quickly, if you want this exact Claude OS template with all the folders and files ready to go, the link is in the description. So make sure you just download it, drag it into your computer, open it up in Claude Cowork, and then you can just get started. All right, so let's talk about workspaces and project files. So if we expand this folder here and we go down to workspace, you can go ahead and see these are just some starter workspaces. I have a much different set that's developed over time for my team. If we just take a look at one of these, let's say clients, we can see we have the changelog, decisions, resources, this a Claude MD, and then what's the current state? What do our clients currently look like? And if we open the resources folder here, remember Cedar is a pretend consulting form. So one of the things they do is going to be giving an auto report to the clients that they're working with. So let's check out what the auto report template looks like. So it's going to start with an executive summary. This is a naming convention, which is going to be really handy. Giving your AI naming conventions is going to really help it in the long run just maintain a clean database that both AI and you can actually navigate really easily. So it's going to start with the executive summary, the business snapshot, what we observed, recommendations, and next steps and open questions. So this is just a clean format that now, let's say you have a workflow that helps you automate most of your auto reporting. Instead of trying to cram all this information in these long documents, we're separating out the different documents you use into resources or assets that then Claude could just tap into whenever it needs it. And next, let's talk about how projects actually work in Cowork, because there's a lot of confusion, understandably so, of how projects differ in Cowork versus chat, because projects in Cowork mean something completely differently than projects like they used to do in chat or ChatGPT. So if we go to projects here, I like to route workspaces as their own projects. So this is from my own team operating system here. Basically, the workspaces that I'm working in a lot, I like to just save them as projects and then pin them here so that I can easily just navigate to them. So if I'm working on the newsletter, I can just go ahead to the newsletter project, and that'll just be filtered to that specific folder so that my Claude is giving me focused responses and not needing to sift through a bunch of information that's from irrelevant workspaces. So that's how I use project. It's for focused work when I just want to be focused on one function of the business. When I want to ask questions and can work with Claude across the entire business, that's when I'll go to the overall OS. So I can just ask it something like, give me a nice visual artifact of all the progress that's been made across all of our workspaces in the last 7 days. All right, and it's creating its task list here. So it's going to scan the repo, it's going to look at our change log, it's going to look at our current MD, look at each workspace's current state, and then create the artifact. Oh, I haven't mentioned this yet. We're going to get there in the video, but it's actually using the Git log instead, which is a much cleaner signal for actual progress. We're going to talk about how to track progress and make sure that the operating system is self-improving across everyone on the team. Also, if you notice, it's tapping into the Elevate brand colors. Because I mentioned I'm making a visual asset, it knows to look through our visual identity file as well. All right, in the last 7 days, we've had 33 commits, 13 decisions logged, 7 workspaces touched, 9 session entries, and it could kind of give you a rundown of all the progress that's been made by workspace. I'm going to have to take a deeper look at this later because this is actually great. The great thing is I could actually turn this into a dashboard. So I can turn this into a live artifact within Claude and just have this updated every day or week if I wanted to as well. Honestly, the most overlooked way to give Claude your business data is with custom databases. Most people upload documents and spreadsheets to Claude, but then they get stuck constantly updating files that are changing all the time. Databases solve that in specifically 2 ways. First, they're structured. So Claude can pull exactly the rows of a data set that it needs without you needing to filter and then re-export a spreadsheet. Second, they can give Claude live data. So updates appearing automatically there can be brought into Claude without you needing to re-upload or explain a single thing. So with Cowork, I can just ask what's on my plate today, and because it's connected to the tasks and projects database that I have in Notion for my team, it'll be able to answer that accurately without me needing to provide any more information. All right, so you should have the Notion database as well that you can go ahead and clone. It should have an area for your tasks and projects. So this is just a quick preview of what my inbox looks like. There's a bunch of different views here. And because I have that set up and I gave that Notion link to my Claude, now I can just ask it something like, what are all the highest priority tasks I have on my list for this week left? And now you see it's connecting to Notion. All right, great. So it pulled from the correct team task database. That's what EET is, Elevate Team. For this week, it looked at it from Notion. So it looks like there are 2 things that are overdue. I plan to have launched this earlier this week, but it's going to come out later this week. So you're going to want to check out the Build Your AI Brain module that I'll be releasing in the AI Workflows Academy soon. So definitely check that out. I need to do a follow-up with a client. I'm setting up a LinkedIn workflow, and just some other things here. So that's my Notion database. What I could have it do also is now figure out what the best time blocks to do each of these for the next 3 days and go ahead and let me know where you think they should go. So hopefully you can see once you connect all these different tools together, it just really starts to simplify your day. If you have Claude connected to Notion and you're able to just triage and go through your top priorities, and then once you refine and land on what you want to focus on, you can just ask it to schedule everything for you. And my favorite thing to do is actually run this entire workflow while I'm out on a walk in the morning. We don't have time to go over in this video. And actually, I covered it in the Claude Cowork for Marketing video. If you want to go check that out, I'll put a link here. And then if you go to Dispatch here and you just connect your phone to it, you can actually run all of these workflows and control your computer from your phone. You might want to try that out, especially if you want to get your steps in. It's telling me some bad news. The week is already heavy, so there are real conflicts that force trade-offs. If you're anything like me, you might overcommit to doing things. So this could actually help you take on a reasonable amount of commitments for your work. Personally, workflows like this really help me make sure I'm just planning what I actually have time for, not what I'm just hoping that I have time for. Now you have the data sources layer of your Claude OS. Your connectors give Claude live access to your apps so that every answer pulls from your tools. Your workspace gives Claude organized access to all of your files so it can easily find what it needs when it's relevant for a task. And your databases give Claude direct access to your live business data so its output is always current. All right, so your new genius hire is oriented to your business and has access to get work done. So now it's actually time to put them to work, and that's the final layer of the AI workflows. If you start every morning by opening Gmail or calendar and your task list just to figure out what's important, you're doing work that Claude should be doing for you. And the final layer of this Claude OS is where Claude starts to do real work for you automatically. And there are 2 main ways to automate work in Claude Cowork: a skill that you can trigger or a scheduled task that runs automatically. So let's cover both of those, and I'm going to give you 2 workflows that you can clone for yourself today. Let's start with skills. Most people use Claude by typing the same prompts or questions into it over and over again. But if you find yourself typing the same prompt or doing the same tasks, you can actually save that entire workflow as a skill. A skill is a reusable workflow that you trigger with one command, basically like a saved recipe for your Claude. And honestly, the simple way to think about this is that it's just an SOP, but for your AI. And your template already includes 2 of these. So let's go over the first one, the daily brief. The daily brief pulls from your calendar, your tasks, your unread emails, and then writes you you a 1-paragraph briefing on what you should focus on today, what's overdue, and what's coming up soon. I run this every morning, and it honestly saves me about 20 minutes a day. And because every skill reads from your Claude OS automatically, it already knows your business voice, and it remembers all your previous decisions every time you run it. And that's exactly why we build skills only after we built those previous 2 layers. So just treat it as a starting point and feel free to customize them as you go. And of course, you don't need to manually customize it yourself. You can actually just ask Claude to edit your existing skills and it'll make the changes for you. All right, let's talk about setting up a daily brief. So I actually have my own customized version here. So I'm just going to show you really quick what mine looks like. I just call mine Thad Start because it's my personal start and it pulls from both my team and personal databases. So yeah, it just reviews my current priorities, my calendar, all my planned projects and tasks, and then it's going to give me just a nice brief of how I should plan my day. So I already have a daily start task that I set up, but just for the sake of walking through this, let's just call this daily brief. I'll say test just so I can remember. The description is going to be provide a daily brief to help me plan my schedule and tasks. And we want it to work in our project. So I would just suggest your overall OS for your business. I'm going to make this repeat daily. And I'll just do it 6 a.m. so it's ready by the time I start working. We're going to say act without asking. And then the actual task is going to be simple. It's going to be run the Thad Start skill. It's just a Slack channel that I already have set up. Once we hit that, our daily brief schedule task has been set. So every day it's going to run at 6 a.m. But what I can do for now is just hit run now so you can see how it works. If I click here, you can actually see it running. So you can see it tapped into the Notion data, looked at my calendar. Now it's searching channels in Slack. All right, it found the daily brief channel and let's go ahead and check it out. There's the overview. Here are the top priorities, today's calendar, blockers. And then this is one thing that I love. And I find that it just helps me get over any procrastination. I always have my Claude to give me the most important next step. So it's basically a productivity trick to always give you whatever the next most important actionable step is. And it makes sure that it's an action you can take and it's something you can do in just a few minutes. So you can easily start your day with some momentum. All right, next we have scheduled tasks. Once you start to repeat a skill on a regular cadence, that's when I would graduate it to a scheduled task. So for me personally, if I'm doing my daily brief, I like to have my daily brief just run at 6 a.m. every morning so that when I open up my computer, I already have my daily brief waiting for me in my Slack instead of needing to remember to run that skill. And here's the workflow to wake up to automatically drafted emails. So you're going to want to open up the template file, open up skills, and you're going to find the draft replies markdown file there. In the customize tab, go to skills, go to create a skill. You're going to upload a skill, and then you're just going to drag in this skill here. And in a second, there you go, it's created. All right, so for the skill, it's going to pull unread emails. It's going to classify each email. It's going to draft each reply using the brand voice, and then it's going to save each one in the Gmail drafts for you to just review and send out. And by the way, if you haven't already, make sure you go to connectors, and you're going to need to make sure that Gmail connector is logged in before you try this. So if you go over to your OS and you just start a new task, yes, you can run the skill here, but if you want to wake up to drafted emails, you're going to have to go to schedule tasks and hit new task. Let's set this up manually. And then for the name, you can just say morning email drafts. And then for the description, you could just say automatically draft my Gmail replies every morning. And then for the description, this is just going to be what the task is. Run the draft-replies.md skill. You're going to want to run it in your OS, wherever that is. For frequency, like I said, let's do daily. Let's do, how about 5:30? And then we're going to save that. And just to test it out, let's just run it now anyways, but it will run every day at 5:30. So it's actually asking me for something, and this is important. So allow for all scheduled runs. So hopefully it's just the first time and it won't ask me this again. So it's telling me it drafted 3 replies. It went ahead and skipped 7 of them. And then it even told me what's a placeholder in one of the drafts. So one of them is asking for a meeting. So if I want to provide my calendar, then I can do that there. And then if we go ahead and check out Gmail, we can see that the 3 drafts have been actually made. Maybe one day I'll have it auto reply, but for now, I definitely want to review anything that's going to be sent out with my name on it. Now you have the AI workflows layer of your Claude OS. Your skills give Claude reusable workflows so you don't have to keep typing in the same prompts. And now your scheduled tasks basically get work done without you and then just present you the final result. Really quickly, if you're running a small or mid-sized service businesses and feel like you'd rather have experts set this all up for you, that's exactly what we do at Elevate. If you're interested, there's a link in the description where you could book your free AI audit. We sit down with you to build your AI strategy and roadmap, pick the right tools, build these workflows for you, and then train your team so that you can run it without us. Okay, so now your Claude OS is starting to get real work done. But without a way to maintain it, it's going to go stale fast. Your work changes quickly, so we're going to need an automated way to keep up. So here's the workflow that keeps your OS sharp by capturing what got decided, what you corrected, and what changed every time you wrap up a work session. At the end of your work session, you're going to run the close skill. You can either hit / and type in the skill, or you can just say you're done for the day or you want to close out your session and it'll trigger the skill. It asks you 3 quick questions. So what did you ship this session? What got decided? And then what changed about how you work? Your answers are going to go into your changelog and decisions folder for whatever workspace you're in. And then the current state of all those workspaces are going to be updated automatically. Now, imagine doing that every time you wrap up your working session. After 6 months, your Claude OS is going to know things about your business that you might have even completely forgotten. And your system is going to keep compounding and improving over time with just 5 minutes that you spend wrapping up your session properly. Even after a week or 2 of working this way, you're going to notice that your work is going to become more effortless. You'll have time for things that you used to never have time for. And when your whole business is running this workflow, all your learnings are going to compound even faster into your OS. And the rate at which AI systems compound only speeds up the more you use them. That's why the gap between AI early adopters and everyone else is just getting wider exponentially every single month. So this is the perfect time for you to dive in and reinvent your business to be AI native. All right, let's go over how to close a session. So you should just be able to run the close command. For me, I have a team version. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in team close, or I can just say, I'm done for the day. I want to wrap up. It'll detect the same skill also. So that's just 2 ways to run it. Great. It's going to just tell you briefly what was completed today. Are there any decisions? Do any updates need to be made to the current state? Are there any skill correction? With just those 4, you're going to get a ton done. And it just takes a minute or 2. And I would just read through to make sure everything's correct. If it had any updates, which this was a short session, so it didn't have any updates, I would just mention them here. And then I would iterate until everything looks good. So we iterated on a graphic. We locked the final version. And we went for a title. And this was me just coming up with a visualization that is actually going to be in one of my videos about the difference between preferences and decisions. So then at the end, I can just say, good to go. And there you have it. The session's closed and you're good to go. And here's a quick bonus before we wrap up. And this is for all of you that are worried about all of your work being lost in ChatGPT. If you've spent the last year telling ChatGPT everything about your business, you don't have to start over with Claude. So ChatGPT lets you export every conversation you've ever had. You can just open up ChatGPT, go to your profile and settings, hit data controls, and then hit export data. And a quick disclaimer, it might take a few hours or even over a day to get that email with your download link. So go ahead and start that now, and you might have to finish the rest of this workflow after you get that. Now, here's the biggest mistake people make when they try to move from ChatGPT over to Claude. They dump the whole thing into Claude and ask it to just set everything up. But the problem is that a year of ChatGPT conversations is full of stale stuff. It might just have your old prices, marketing copy that you've completely changed, or decisions you just made in the moment and didn't actually want to capture moving forward. If you just shovel all this into your Claude OS, your new AI system is just going to start with a bunch of bad data and give you bad output from the start. So here's the better way. Drop the export into the Claude OS folder and then give Claude this prompt. Analyze my ChatGPT export, pull out the important context about my business, any files I uploaded, decisions I've made, and my preferences. Present it to me back as a numbered list. For each of them, I'll tell you to keep, refine, or ignore. Don't write anything to my files until I confirm. I did this exact process with an e-commerce founder, and Claude pulled out the 23 top decisions from over 500 ChatGPT conversations that he had saved. We took the time to pause and go down the list together, and we figured out what was actually important and what was actually outdated. And spoiler alert, there was a ton of bad information that he definitely didn't want to bring over to Claude. So I highly recommend not skipping over this step. And the same idea works for custom GPTs, by the way. If you've built specific GPTs or projects, all you have to do is take the instructions or file you had in those, drop it into the Claude OS folder, and then ask Claude how to handle that information. It might suggest that that should be turned into a skill, or that could be added as a resource in a specific workspace for you, and it'll route everything where it goes. So that's how you can set up your Claude OS better than most businesses. Or better yet, just ask your new Claude OS system what the best approach would be to get past any of your blockers. And once you have this running, the next thing you're going to want to do is point it at specific use cases within your business. If you want to learn how to use Claude Cowork for marketing, I go over 4 marketing use cases in this video here. So definitely check that out, and I'll see you on the next one.